So a few days ago when we launched Cutting Craftorium USB actually for Christmas 2021, I showed you how to create a snowflake doily just from one of the snowflakes that's in the embellishment folder. And I promised you all that I would do a video. So here we are, doing a video. So what I want to teach you is, and make you understand, which I know a lot of you do, is that you can take a shape and take it in loads of different directions, and that's what I want to teach you. And then we're going to go into Canvas Workspace, because what you can do on the SDX, as in creating an outward offset line, if you have a CM machine, you have to do in Canvas. So I'm going to show you both, because that way everybody can do the same project. So let's get started now. Just so that you know, I haven't got the official Cutting Craftorium USB. My files are just on a USB that I carry around with me everywhere. So you'll know how to access yours, but the file name will be the same, and it will be in a similar, it'll be in the same folder. So bear with while we just do this bit. So I'm going to go to retrieve data and into the USB. And mine's going to take a little bit longer to open than yours will, because it's got so many files on, it's ridiculous. I'm going to go into Eclectic Christmas, because that was the name of the USB, and into the SVG cutting files. And we're going to scroll down until we get to the embellishments, and this will be now exactly the same as you've got. So I'm going to go into the snowflakes, and for this particular design I chose Snowflake 4. So we click on that, gives you two different snowflakes. I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to get rid of the largest one. Now we all know that that's not deleting it off the USB, that's just taking it off the screen, so it's always going to be on the USB until you choose to delete it. So what I'm going to do now is I want two of these snowflakes. So I go to Object Edit and I go to Duplicate, and in the number I put 2. So I've now got 2 snowflakes, and I'm going to drag both of these over to the top left hand corner. You can hear a tune in the background. There's a sandwich van that comes round, so just ignore the tune in the background. If it was ice cream I might be out there right now. I'm going to rotate the top one so that it's upside down, and then I'm just going to pull it back into the corner, because it will move it slightly when you rotate it. I'm then going to pull or press OK and come out of here, and I'm going to pull the top one down. So there are 3 squares on my mat in between the 2 snowflakes. So let me show you exactly what I mean by that. There's 1 snowflake, and the bottom tip of that frond is on the bottom of the second line. And I want the top of this top frond on this one at the bottom of the 3rd line. So I've got 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, and then the top of the snowflake. I'm just going to nudge that up a couple of spaces. You don't have to be that accurate, but when we come to rotate these, the snowflakes need to have a distance between them. So I'm just trying to make it easy for you rather than trying to guess what works. I know that this particular positioning works perfectly. So the next thing I'm going to do is group those 2 together. So to do that, we press OK and we go to Object. No, we don't. We go to Multiple Select. So we go to Multiple Select, everything on the mat, and press OK. If you want to, and I would advise you do this anyway, just check your alignment and make sure that they're aligned centrally, vertically. And then when you press OK twice, go back into Object Edit and group it together. So we now have a pair of snowflakes. Now, the way that I work out the rotation amount is like this. And if you're using a different snowflake, you're going to need to work this out for yourself, okay? Because I can't do every snowflake and work out exactly what it needs. Or if you resize it, you will need to do this. All right, so let's bring on 2 of the sets, and let's use our alignment function now. So we multiple select everything that's on the mat, so the complete mat image, and we press OK. Then we're going to move them, so we go to our directional arrow buttons, and we go to our alignment function at the top. And wherever the straight line is where it's going to align them to. So we're going to align them centrally vertically and centrally horizontally. And then we press OK twice, and to release those 2 sets of snowflakes, you must tap the screen. So if I tried to rotate it now, it would rotate the whole thing until I tap it, and then nothing, doesn't look like anything happens on the screen, but it releases those 2 sets so they're separate. So when you're creating a doily, what's going to happen is you've got two snowflakes like that, one at the top and one at the bottom. As you rotate the top one to the right, the bottom one is going to move to the left, and it's going to rotate round like that. So we need to make sure that the number of sets that we need is divisible into 180. So it could be 9 and you would rotate it 20 degrees, or it could be 6 and you'd rotate it 30 degrees, or it could be 4 and you rotate it 45 degrees, or it could be 90 and you rotate it, or 2 sets and you rotate it by 90 degrees. So on this particular one, the way I start off with is 45 degrees. So I'm going to go into Object Edit and I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I'm looking at, if I zoom in to this for you, is a very slight distance between those two snowflakes. So if I scroll down and scroll across, you can see just there's a slight gap in between those snowflakes, and you need that gap, because if you don't have that gap, one snowflake's going to cut into the other one. So that's really important. So any snowflake will do this. It will depend on the distance that you put between them and the actual size of the snowflake. So that's the only bit that you need to work out, because like I said, I can't do it for every snowflake. I'll be here for months, okay? But it's also teaching you how to do it as well, which is important, all right? So I'm just going to undo what I've done. So my two pairs are back on top of each other. So I need another 2, all right? So I'm going to go back into Object Edit and back into our Duplicate button. And this time I'm going to ask it to do 3. Because it's already counting the one that's on, I have to use that as my number 1. And then I need 2 more. So I ask it to do 3. And that will give me my original one, the one that was highlighted, which was my first one, and then 2 extras. So I'll have 4 now. So we have to align all these together now. So we multiple select everything that's on the mat and we press OK. Then we're going to move them. So we go to our directional arrow buttons and we go to our alignment function, and you're going to align all 4 sets centrally vertically and centrally horizontally. You're going to press OK twice, and then you're going to tap the screen to release that pile of 4. So then we're going to go Object Edit and rotate, and the first one we're going to do 45 degrees again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it tells you at the top. So if you forget, like I do sometimes, do I go 44, 45? It tells you at the top. Then we're going to press OK twice, and we're going to use these arrows to get to our next vertical set, like that. And then this time we're going to rotate this one 90 degrees, so 45 degrees twice. So 90 degrees will give me my next set. Then we press OK again twice. We used our arrows to get to the next vertical set, and this time I'm going to go anti-clockwise 45 degrees. So I'm going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll notice at the top it says 316, because when you work in an anti-clockwise direction, it subtracts 45 or whatever increment you're using from 360. Or if you feel happy, you can just do 135 degrees clockwise, whichever suits you. So now we have this beautiful ring of snowflakes, and we need to group them together. So we're going to press OK and OK again, and then we're going to multiple select everything that's on the mat. We're going to press OK, and we're going to go to Object Edit and group them together. So now they can move as one piece. All right. Now what I want to do is add a square around that so that it cuts into the cardstock, and it gives me 8 snowflakes that I can take out of the card, but it cuts the detail into a piece of card. All right. So I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to go to Add, and I'm going to go into my basic shapes, and I'm going to bring on a square. Now if I try and set that on the mat now, it allows me to do it at the smaller size. If I'd done that and resized it to 8 inches, it wouldn't have let me do it, because it can't fit it on the mat with the position of that snowflake. If you set it on the mat and then resize it, it allows you to do it, okay? So I'm going to go to edit on the square and object edit and resize. And at this point, I can go into my settings, which is my little spanner here, and I can change the increment of measurement to inches, because I know I want this to go on I want this to be an 8x8 card front. So now we can resize the square to 8 inches. If you're, actually let's do 7 3/4. If you're doing this on a CM machine, you will need to move the square into the center of the mat to be able to resize it, because it needs space to expand. As soon as it hits the side, it stops. On the SDX, it expands out from that way, so it makes it bigger that way as well. So we're going to put that in the middle of there. So again, it's quite repetitive. Multiple select, everything on the mat, and press OK. This time we're going to align it centrally vertically and centrally horizontally again. And then you don't even need to group this if you don't want to. You can move it without grouping it. All right. So then I can just cut that out of a piece of white card. So I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to just let it cut. And I'm sure our lovely Nikki, who's doing all the videos, will just edit the cutting bit out, because you don't need to sit here and watch it cut all this out. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the next bit, which is the really cool bit. So I'm going to load this in. I'm just going to talk to you about my settings, because I've got 300 GSM cards stock on here, and I'm working with an SDX, so we've got the auto blade sensor. So the way that we make sure that it cuts through, because I like it when it cuts through in one go rather than going back round again. So the way that we do that on this is we go to please select and cut. We go into our little tools here and we set our cut amount on 1mm. Okay, so it's going to measure this card and it's going to know that it can then cut through in one pass. So I'm going to press OK and I'm going to press start. And I'm going to let it do its thing. Now, if it suddenly changes the amount of time that it's going to take to cut it, so it increases the cut time, it's because it's decided that it needs to cut through more than once. So it will compensate for that extra cut time and it will come up on your screen. But I can see now that it's stayed at 4 minutes, so I know that it's going to cut that in one pass. So I'm going to let the scan and cut do its thing, and then we'll come back when it's all cut and we'll do the reveal on the mat for you. Right, so it's cut, which is good. And then I'm just going to lift this out so that you can see then what we have created. So you've now got your fabulous Snowflake Doily that you can use as a card front. Then you could put sentiment in the middle, you could create some little corner pieces and decorate that up. You're also left, of course, with all these snowflakes. So let's get these off here. Just need to grab my tweezers. I don't know what to do without tweezers. I battled for ages against reverse tweezers because it was opposite of what I'd always done, and now I can't work without them. I think they're brilliant. So I'm going to take these snowflakes off the mat, and we can use those later on to lay them out and show you the different options that you could do with this. But it kind of just keeps going and going. It's one of those that you have an idea like this and then you try another shape and another shape and another shape. It gets really, really exciting. You know, you just think, blimey, one little snowflake file that I've probably paid a couple of pennies for, and now look what I can do with it. Right, so I'm going to show you the way that you create an outward offset line on the machine. And then I'm going to take those of you that will prefer to do it in Canvas or have a CM machine into Canvas Workspace and show you how it works in there. So on this one, I'm going to go back and remember that I had a square around the outside edge. I'm going to get rid of that. Well, I'm going to save it now. I'm going to save it into the machine's memory. And it's telling me there's a group pattern because the snowflakes are grouped together, okay? Not the snowflakes and the square. So I would save it ungrouped, and then you can always regroup it again if you want to, because once you've saved it, you can't then ungroup it without taking it into Canvas. So I'm going to get rid of the square, first of all. So we're going to put that into the bin. And I've got my snowflake frame grouped. So we're going to go into Object Edit, and we're going to go to Create Offset Line. Now, the machine will create offset lines on some shapes and not on others. And there's a reason behind it. It's because there might be overlapping paths, so it can't get all the way around a shape. It's just some shapes it just doesn't work, but then you can do it in Canvas Workspace. So let's try this one and it'll tell you whether it can do it or not. So if we tap on the create outward offset line, it turns blue, but it doesn't do anything instantly. All right, so it doesn't automatically come up. Sometimes it has to work out whether it can before it does it. All right, so it's kind of plotting it out, if you like. Now we're back in inches, so 0.04 inches is 1 millimetre. So 0.08 millimetres, and can you see how there was a slight delay when I asked it to increase it, because it's working out again whether it can increase it. So 0.08 millimetres, 8 inches is 2 millimetres, all right? So I'm going to press OK now. And it's processing it, and it's doing all the little plotting out bits now to find out where to put the lines. So be patient with it, because it's doing something that really a piece of design software is designed to do, but it's doing it on the machine. So if it says no, it can't, there will be a reason for it. It's not that you've done anything wrong, it's just that it can't do it. All right. So what we have now is we have our group of snowflakes that we created initially. So I'm going to put those in the bin because we don't need to work with those on this one. And then we have 8 snowflakes that are separate. You see, and they overlap. So we don't need to move those at all. What we want to do is weld them. And because the outward offset line has created that overlap, it means that we can literally do this. So we go into Object, Edit, and Ungroup it. And then instead of group again, we weld it. And that will overlap, those pieces are all overlapped, and it will just weld them together for you, okay? So let's do this now. Let's take that and let's put that inside a square again, all right? And then we can cut both pieces out so that you can see what you're left with. So let's press OK and go to Add and go back into our patterns and our square and set that on the mat. Now it's telling me, can you see there's not enough space? Because we've made the actual Snowflake Doily bigger, it can't fit that size of square on. So what we do is this. We make the square smaller, then we set it on the mat so it does fit, and then we make it bigger. So more often than not, there's a workaround. And working out the workarounds is one of my favourite things to do. I love it. I think it's just really cool. So let's make this 7.5 this time. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And let's align those. So we then multiple select everything that's on the mat and we press OK. We go to our directional arrow buttons again and we align them centrally vertically and centrally horizontally. And then again, we don't need to group it. We can move it just like that. And we can press OK and keep going, and then we're going to cut this out of a different colour of card, and I'm going to use craft card. Now there's lots of different qualities of craft card out in the marketplace, and the one that I've found is the best, not necessarily for cutting, but for the colour, is the Anna Marie Designs. So when you look on the back of this, there's no horrible dark bits, there aren't lighter bits and darker bits, there's not like little speckles all over it. So even the back of it is a really good quality, but the front of it is a beautiful craft colour. So if you're looking for some really good quality craft card that looks really nice, it doesn't look like it's been recycled, you know, it looks like really good quality, then Anna Marie Designs is brilliant. That's where I get mine from. And I think they do it in 12 by 12, and I think they used to do it in 12 by 24. I don't know whether they still do, but you could check that out. So we now have our snowflake matte layer, if you like. So I'm going to load this in, and this will be quicker to cut. So I'm just going to let it cut, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do in Canvas Workspace. So we're going to press OK, please select, cut. I'm happy with my settings still being on 1 millimetre because this is quite a dense card as well. And then I'm going to press start. And it says 3 minutes, but it's probably 2 minutes and a second because it's not a detailed design that it needs to cut. Now, in your CM machines, you've got two CM machines that are not Wi-Fi enabled. So you've got the CM300 and the CM600. And then you've got two that are. So you've got your CM700, which was your special edition, your red machine. And then you have your CM900. So if you are working on a Wi-Fi enabled machine, you're going to save the file, the original Snowflake Doily file, into Canvas Workspace, or save it into the cloud and then get it in Canvas Workspace. If you're working with non-Wi-Fi enabled, you're going to save the file onto a USB, and then you're going to put your USB into your computer, and you're going to import the file into Canvas Workspace, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So either way, it doesn't matter which model of machine you have, this project will work for you. And I'm going to try really, really, really hard to make sure that as many projects as possible work on all machines, because I don't want you to feel left out if you were one of the first people to invest in a scan and cut and take that plunge into the digital machine world. So I'm going to try and make sure that you can do as much as possible. And right now I've managed to make that happen. So I'm going to keep trying to do that. So we're not far off now. It's just cutting around the outside edge now of this. And it's clever, isn't it, that it can now plot out itself an outward offset line. That's something that we would have had to do in something like Illustrator or Inkscape, and go in and use a proper graphics program, which actually takes a lot of time to get your head around. Whereas now, Brother are looking at it and thinking, well, actually, we can make that happen on the machine. Right, so we now have our square. And that square here will fit perfectly over the top of there. And you will notice that what I did was I had the snowflake at the size that we created it on a 7 3/4 inch square. I then did the larger aperture, so the outward offset line, and I did a 7 1/2 inch square. So we've now got a perfect white matte layer around the edge. So we didn't have to do it twice. I just made the inside bigger and the outside smaller, and that gives you that perfect matte layer. The other thing that we have is the inside of it, and the inside of it comes out like that. And you could snip these little bits off and create a flower, but it also fits inside the center like that. So you've then got, just move that out of the way so we can see it properly. Let's unload that mat. You've then got options. So right now we have that as an option, and you could put a piece of craft card behind that. Then you've got that as an option. So that fits in there. Then you could put a sentiment in the center. We've then got that as an option, like that, which looks fabulous, doesn't it? We could then take a solid piece of white, which I don't think I've got another one of, so let's use a different colour. And you could put that on there like that, or you could put that on there like that, and have that as the centre, like so. And then you could take your original snowflakes and pop those. Let me have a look. That needs to go like that there, like that. And you could create, and remember, this is from one snowflake. And I really, really want to get you by the end of this year to a stage where you're confident enough to try this by yourself. Because as you've seen when we're building this up, it's very repetitive, is scan and cut. And repetition is the mother of all skill. The more you do something, the easier it becomes. And when I first got the scan and cut out of the box, like you probably did, I'm thinking, I had nobody to help me. I was like, right, brilliant, how does this work then? So I had a very short window to learn it, or learn as much as I needed to be able to launch it at one of the trade shows. And I think learning it in bite-sized pieces like this is much better than being overwhelmed by the whole thing. So look at that. So we've now got all these different layouts from one snowflake. That's how we started, one single snowflake. Now the other thing that you can do, because we haven't even gone into this bit yet, is this is the matte layer that we actually wanted to create in the first place. So we haven't even looked at the bit that we did before on purpose. This is what we started to design. We've just used all the other options. So you've then got this that could go on there. Let's get rid of all these bits off here. So you could have that on there, and then all your snowflakes can sit on top of that. It's never ending, isn't it? This is the great thing about just playing and not being scared. And what I do when I'm doing something like this is I will try it and I'll write myself little notes as I'm doing it. And then I'll work it out, and then I'll go back and see if I can eliminate any of the steps to make it faster or simpler. And then if I can't, then I'll come and go, right, this is how it works and this is why it works like that. So we've then got this that goes in there like that. So you've got a perfect little snowflake wreath then. And you could do these snowflakes back to back, and you could make that a hanger that could then hang, and you could do a smaller one underneath it or a smaller one in the middle, and you've got a beautiful card there ready to go. Right, so what I'm going to do now is take you into Canvas Workspace and show you how to create this in Canvas in case you haven't got an SDX. All right, so the same process that we did, but I'm going to show you how to do it here. Right, so let's bring in my laptop. I had a bit of a panic with this laptop the other week, so we had a deadline of Monday for the Christmas Cutting Craftorium USB, and I turned my computer on a Saturday morning and it just went, nope, not doing it, not having it. I was like, right. And all I did the night before was just close my screen. I was like, why are you not doing anything? So there was a bit of a panic because it would not switch on. Please don't do that to me now. Oh, it needs to load again. There we go. I was like, please don't do this. And the only way I could do it was to get lovely Sheila Halliwell, because she had the files on a USB, to save them into Canvas Workspace so that I could then download them from the cloud to my machine. It was a real panic, but that's also the joy of saving things in Canvas, because you can then download them and there's no restriction to the size of the amount of storage that you've got in Canvas, which is good in the cloud. So I'm going to bring on the file that I've saved into the cloud. I'm going to tap the screen. I'm going to get rid of this one because I've shown you how to do that on your SDX. I want to teach you how to do it in Canvas Workspace for our CM users. So I've got that. I'm going to go to Edit and I'm going to create an offset line. Okay. And I'm going to drop my spacing down. So I'm going to hover on towards the left hand side of the spacing bar and click so it goes to 0.08 inches or 2 millimeters. If you work in millimeters, you find it easier, then change your increment of measurement. Then I'm going to click, it's outward, and then it says select original line, leave as is, delete, or set to a drawing line. I am going to delete the original doily. So I'm just left with the 8 wider snowflakes that's going to create that matte layer. So I'm going to click on delete and press OK, and it should, fingers crossed, there you go, leave me with the 8 matte layers that I've created. So what we need to do now is left click and drag a box around all of those 8, and then go into edit and go down to process overlap and weld, and that will now weld all those together, and we've created exactly what we created on the SDX. So then if you want to save that, you will go to project and plus, and it comes up save another project, and then it will tell you when it's saved it. So we then press OK. Now if I go to my projects now, you can see that it's not there. So what I do is I refresh, and once I've refreshed, it then appears there. So we've got exactly what we need and it's saved now forever. Now, I'm going to leave that bit there and I'm going to teach you the other bit on the SDX and then come back into this to show you the next thing that we can do with this file. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and I'm going to go back to my original. So if I press OK now, and go back. I can save this if I want to, which I'm going to, just to make sure that I've got it. I'm going to save it into the machine's memory. And it's always worth saving it because you can get rid of it afterwards, but there's nothing worse than then suddenly realising, oh, I can't do that now because I haven't saved it, I have to start all over again. So just save everything, that's what I do. And then I'm going to press home and OK, and then we're going to retrieve our data. We're going to go back into the machine's memory because that's where I saved my original, which is here. And I go back to my original doily. All right. Now, what if I want to make that so that it's not like a ring shape, if I want to make it into an actual physical piece that cuts out of the cardstock? So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to add, and we're going to go into patterns, and we're going to bring on our basic shapes, and I'm going to add a circle into the middle of it. So I'm going to click on the circle, and I'm just going to accept the size that it is, that it brings up automatically, and then I'm going to work from there. So I'm going to go to Edit and multiple select everything that's on the mat and press OK. And I'm going to align it centrally vertically and centrally horizontally like that. And then I'm going to press OK twice, and I'm going to tap the screen. So now the circle, just the circle, is highlighted. And I'm going to just make that circle a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go into my resize box, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger until it covers a little bit more of the snowflake. So I'm going to zoom in so that I can see it clearly and you can see it clearly. And I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to use this scroll function to scroll down. So I can see that my circle there is just covering over that inside frond. So I want to make it a little bit bigger still. So I'm going to go to Object Edit and into the resize, and let's do it at, let's try 4 1/4. And that looks better to me. Actually, I'm going to keep it at 4.28. So make a note of that if you don't want to work it out. That's the size that I've made it at. So now what I'm going to do is weld that circle on top of that snowflake. So I'm going to press multiple select, everything on the mat, press OK. It's already aligned, so I don't need to think about that. Go to Object Edit and weld it. And then I've got a snowflake that will cut out, and you'll have that matte layer that will go on the inside. So let's cut that out so that you can see what that looks like as well. And then we've got our options. Okay. So let's cut this out of blue. So we're using a different cardstock. Now this is American Crafts cardstock. So because I know that this needs a lighter pressure and a lower blade depth than the craft card or the white card that I've used, I'm going to make the SDX do that, even though it's the auto blade sensor. So I'm going to move this up here, and I'm going to press OK. And when I get to please select and cut, I'm going to go back into my settings here. I'm going to drop my auto blade down to -2 because it doesn't need that deeper blade or that higher pressure, and then I'm going to put the cut amount back to 0.5 mil. And you work out on your machine depending on the edge of your blade. If you just wanted to do auto sensor, you can do. But I'm one of those people that likes to know that it's going to give me the best cut possible, and I know that a lower pressure is better than a higher pressure. So I'm just drop it down. There's no point putting that pressure on, which is going to put a deeper cut into your blade if it doesn't need it. Into your mat rather, if it doesn't need it. So I'm one of those people that likes to be in control of the machine, which is why I still love my CM machines, because I can be really specific with the blade depth. And I know this does it for me, but I like that bit of control that I've got. So while that's cutting, you could do that on any machine, because you just bring a circle in and you're welding it to the inside of your original snowflake. So I don't need to teach you that in Canvas. But something that I do need to show you in Canvas is how you ungroup the matte layer. So how you ungroup this bit from, bear with, this bit from this bit, because what it sees is an outside line and an inside line. And when you create something in Canvas Workspace, you can't then ungroup it unless you do the thing that I'm going to show you next, and then you can. So if when I send this in from the machine to Canvas, it will automatically ungroup it. So that's what I'm going to show you. If you design something in Canvas and save it, you can't ungroup it. But I'm going to show you how you can do it. And it's quite simple and it's quite quick. So it's now doing all its little things. Now, what we've done now is we've designed a new shape. So once we've designed a new shape, it creates other lines of its own, if you like, because we've got an overlap. It's creating a new shape within that shape that we designed originally. So if you then want to put something inside that or weld that to another snowflake, you need to take it into Canvas Workspace and divide it, because what it's doing is it's putting piles of shapes on top of each other. So I'll show you that as well. It's interesting when you start, because once you start to think like the machine thinks, or even just understand how the machine thinks, you then know the processes that you need to go through. But I want to teach it to you in little bits, because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed and go, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'll just stick to plugging it in and cutting it out. Because there is such versatility and so much more creativity just by having that little bite-sized pieces of confidence given to you and practicing it. You'll love your machine even more. So we're nearly there now with this cut, and it's cutting beautifully. So we're not far off. And I like the fact that it shows you the timing on the screen, because you know that if you've got time to go make a cup of tea or put the washing out, that's what I do. Get the scan and cut cutting and then go and do my jobs in between and then come back and it's finished. Right, so let's let this do its thing. I honestly, 6.5 years on, I could still sit there and just watch it. It fascinates me, especially when it's drawing, because it doesn't draw it in the way that I expect it to. It does a little bit here and a little bit there. It's just brilliant. Right, so we now have our snowflake that has now got a solid circle welded onto the inside of it. Look. You see? And where it's overlapped, it's created more shapes. So if I show you the map, please forgive my map, but I do use them a lot. You can see all these little extra bits here is new waste. All right, so it's new pieces that have been left behind. So let's do the dividing bit first, but that's fabulous. So let me just do this bit first. So we've now got our original, and that's just going to sit and fit perfectly, slot perfectly into there if you wanted to, or you could have it like that. So you've now got that pattern, okay? Then we can do this bit. So we can take this and we can pop that inside there, and then we could pop that back on there if you wanted it to, if you wanted to have it like that. So there is another one. We could take, let's have a look, this and this, I think. So then that would fit over the top of that and give you that matte layer. And that's almost, let me have a look, make sure I'm not talking rubbish. That's almost gutted the middle of that frame. So you're saving your card by doing it that way as well. So you could do that way. Then you could have these snowflakes in between there if you wanted to, like that. It just keeps going and going and going and going, which is brilliant. Right, so let's go back into my laptop now so that I can show you this bit. There we go. So we're back to where we were before, and we've got this. So what I'm going to do now is save from machine. So I'm going to press OK. I'm going to go back on my machine and I'm going to press save. And I'm going to save it into the cloud so that you can see how I recall it into Canvas Workspace. It tells me it's successful. I am going to get rid of that one because we're not working with that anymore by highlighting it and putting it in the bin. But my other one isn't there yet, so I'm going to refresh. And then I now have that. Now, if you wanted to weld a solid snowflake to the back of that to create a card base, you need to divide it. And what divide does is it removes all the waste bits so it can see it as a shape rather than a pile. All right, so I'm going to go into edit and process overlapped, and this is divide. So click divide, you get your blue band come across at the top, and then when you left click on the original shape, so left click and drag it, can you see it's removed all that waste? And by removing that waste now, you can weld that. So it then means that you can take that shape and weld it to a solid and make a card base. So it just keeps going and going and going. So whenever you weld something to something, you need to then, when you want to, if you want to take it into canvas, you need to divide it. All right. So then I just drag a box around all the waste bits and put that in the bin. And then I've got this. So I've now got, I can take that. Now I would rotate it so that these two, you don't want a card that just has one snowflake at the bottom because it won't stand up. So you can then rotate that, and you can do that actually by grabbing that little box at the top and dragging your mouse, and it will rotate it. If you're somebody like me that likes to be more specific, you can do it if you go into properties. Just wait for the machine to catch up, bear with. You go into properties, which is this box here, and it will give you an option to rotate, and you can type it into a actual box. So you can do that. Oh, page unresponsive, there you go. See, this is why I don't do technology. It drives me mad. So we've done that bit. So now that you know how you would do that, which is great. So let's get rid of this now. Oh, it's still unresponsive. Let me show you this bit. We can work with that still in place, I think. So let's bring on, no, it's not having it, is it? Right, I'm going to talk you through it. So we're talking about this bit now. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, it's still unresponsive. Well, you know what? You pop off over there and I'll talk you through this. So when you've got this shape, you've got it in canvas as an outside line and an inside line, but you can't separate the two. So what you do is you send it back to your machine. So you send it, you download it back to your machine, you recall it from the cloud on your machine, and then you send it back into the cloud. So it saves it then as a new project, as a different project, as a fresh project. So then when you click on that project, because it sent it from your machine into Canvas, it's ungrouped, or you can ungroup it. So that's how you would do it. So if you wanted to get rid of this bit and just have this as a file so that you're not wasting this bit every time you cut it out, that's how you would do it. You send it back to your machine, you recall it on your machine, and then you save it back into the cloud. Or you save it, you download it onto your USB, you recall it from your USB on your machine, you save it back to your USB, and then you recall it in Canvas Workspace. I know it's a bit of a pain in the neck, and I am going to speak to Brother to see if they can rectify that so that you can always ungroup a shape that you've designed, and I will speak to them about that. But for right now, this is the way that you do it. So I really hope that all that made sense. I get to a stage sometimes where I think I'm using a lot of words, but do it in little pockets. And the great thing about having this on YouTube for you on our Innovation Hub page is that you can pause me and you can rewind it and you can pause and you can play and you can do all that sort of stuff. But I just thought from a single snowflake in one embellishment folder on one USB, we've created all these different elements. And if you've got a day where you're just like, I can't even think about what I want to do, just bring on a shape and have a play around with it like that, because the inspiration and creativity that you gain from spending that little bit of time working things out on the machine, sending it into Canvas, playing around with it in there, is extraordinary. And that's what's going to keep you and hold your interest with your scan and cut as you go forward. because just plugging a USB in and cutting stuff out is great. But we want to get every little last bit out of our scan and cut and our USBs. So let's go on this journey together. Let's get really, really creative. And I can't wait to see the different things that you guys come up with, and share them with us, please, so that we can then share them with the wider community. So I really hope that that helped. And when I come up with the next thing, I'll do a video for that too. I'll see you all soon. Take care, stay safe.